Welcome, welcome, welcome. So here we are, yay. And I just want to share really briefly that I was sharing with Devin. I have been relying on Meetup to be the end-all be-all to fill these seats in this room, and I had an epiphany this afternoon that one of the things that I do in my life that's very routine is get into a habit that something works, so it's got to work all the time. And Meetup has worked really, really well for many, many times for the past several months, and then all of a sudden, Meetup has rejected my groups, which I thought was fascinating. I was told twice, because I set them up twice. I set one up last week, and it didn't post, and I thought, well, that's weird, it didn't post. And I set one up the night of the last event, and the first notification that I got went into spam, so I didn't see it. And their statement to me was, your Meetup doesn't meet the criteria of our groups because you're promoting a service. I said, oh, okay. So whatever that is, it's an opportunity for me to, again, look at a different way of doing things. And so I think that's going to be a great segue to the conversation that we're going to have tonight, because no matter how you're doing something now, if you continue to do the same things over and over, I mean, we've all heard this before, you get the same results. And I have really good friends that are in 12-step programs, and they say that that's the definition of insanity when you're expecting a different result. And I can't disagree with that. So I wanted to start out, first of all, just seeing where you are as far as what happened this week, and get a little bit of insight as to how it was with your prosperity partners. Lori, we had prosperity partners last week that we all did, which you will get one tonight, so that'll be fun. We're going to do a different prosperity partner every week, so that once again doesn't also get us into a habit of being attached to one person. So we'll, I'm going to let you volunteer to share, and if you don't share, then I guess I'll call on you, because that's the way I am. So, who wants to share about something that, some insight or an aha, or how you felt supported, or maybe even you had some resistance around having a prosperity partner this week?
I can start. Go ahead.
Okay.
Your hands up.
Devin?
I would just like to say my partner Stephanie was awesome.
Awesome.
Incredibly dedicated. Called me every day.
All right.
And I just appreciated and respected that very, very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Mark?
Well, Jeanette is, what's the partner called?
Prosperity partner.
And I would echo the same sentiments. I mean, it's nice to have somebody there that I could call. We are both in the art field, so we're connecting that way. She does interior design, I do graphic design. And I think people such as ourselves that are artists, we need that, because a lot of times we are in our art world,
right,
and we need to get out of it and join the real world. And my goal is to market myself and do a better job of that. And it's nice to have a sounding board, someone who's more experienced than I am in the business world and is 10 miles down the road further than I. There you go.
Fabulous. Yeah. And you're not alone in that that role of staying within yourself, because I also run into that with a lot of my clients that are internet marketers, or just people that are doing basically what I did this week, was being behind my computer too much. So in other words, I wasn't out meeting and greeting to fill the room. Not that that's the issue here. It's just an idea that the more we collaborate with one another, the more that we can connect with one another. And I'm going to share some stories about that tonight that are really, really poignant around that idea, because we are community creatures. That's all we are as human beings. And when we don't acknowledge that, and we say, oh, well, that's just my personality type, that's really doing a disservice to ourselves as much as the community at large who needs us and our gifts. So thanks for sharing that. Jeanette?
It was really great. I had Lenore, and she did a great job of listening and giving me some insights that I hadn't seen. And it was really great mentoring too, you know, and just kind of like can see myself in the mentoring.
Mhm.
So it was good.
Yeah, cool. Stephanie,
I have a reverend.
you have a what?
Reverend, I call her Reverend
Oh, Lenore?
Lenore.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
And she was she listens, and which I like. So I can sit back and not just babble, but I can tell her what my goals were, did I meet it, did I not, and she sits and listens to it, and she doesn't interrupt me, so.
So, as funny as that is that something that you really crave in your life, is to have someone listen to you that won't interrupt you?
Yeah, that, and also, I need to get to the point, so for her to get off the phone and move on. I think I have a little bit of ADD maybe, and so I would sit there, I was okay, da 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 da. She goes, oh, that's fantastic, that's awesome, and then we're done with it, and then I call her, or she call me tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what I'm going to invite you to do as you go through the process and we grow the group and people become more in community with one another to do this, that you begin to become insightful about those kinds of things, just like you. Well, I really would love having these people in my life that listen to me and don't interrupt me, and how can I get to the point? Because it's a two-edged conversation there, as well as giving you feedback about what's going on in your life, because we all are craving something. This is one of the most important parts of the structure of the 3 steps that I talked about last week, with deep practice, with ignition, which is basically craving. And so when I get into that conversation, we're going to see how it's so important that that ingredient be present to make any kind of difference in your life. The ignition part, the craving part, is going to be the catalyst to actually getting something done. And then the mastering coaching, which is that component of having people give you feedback. So as we grow as a group and as you become more comfortable and trust each other, this is what's really, really key, is this is what a coach will do. And this is what's so important, is that you begin to give feedback to one another in that loving, congruent way, so that it feels okay for you giving it and also feels okay for you to receive it. Because if you're not willing to receive input or feedback, and I really dislike the words constructive criticism, because first of all, I don't care what kind of criticism it is. Who the hell wants that? I don't want criticism. I am way open to feedback though. If you want to tell me what you see and how you feel, I'm good to go. And the fact is that it might hurt my feelings, but if I'm looking introspectively, there's probably some nuggets in there, and it's important that we all begin to learn and be open to feedback from ourselves and from other people, because that's what helps us thrive and grow. So I wanted to ask also, did you feel any resistance to anything that was coming up, as far as, I mean, obviously you did a really good job of picking up the telephone, which sometimes that can be the biggest resistance of all, is those telephones feel like they're 100 pounds sometimes when you're about to engage in something that's different or out of your comfort zone. That being said, maybe that was a problem, maybe it wasn't. And what kind of resistance to the idea of just opening up to wealth and abundance might have come up? What kind of voices or gremlins or conversation did you have with yourself about moving in a direction that is different from where you are right now?
Sometimes I wonder, with Devin, because I know when I work with, I came from management, and when I work with a team, and if they are not coachable, and or sometimes people feel like they can't handle the truth right now.
Yeah.
So I kind of back away, and also I feel like I can't motivate someone who is not motivated. didn't answer the phone. I'm like, okay, I don't know if Devin's going to be here today.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but he mentioned that he got tied up, et cetera, with this business.
If I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's only because she was so awesome in terms of her accountability for me.
Mm-hmm.
I actually acted upon that,
Mm-hmm.
and it generated so much momentum
Mm-hmm.
that I ran with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only because of the catalyst
Mm-hmm.
of what she ignited.
Mm-hmm.
So, she was there. But it's like past, present, future. I had to go back to catch up with her.
Right. And so I think that's really, really great information and feedback, especially because I don't know if it's women or it's just people that have this personality type. We can overanalyze something and believe that it has something to do with us, when the fact of the matter is he was busy.
Right.
And look at the feedback that you just got is that, wow, you were awesome, instead of, shit, she's bugging me a lot. Right? I mean, and this is also part of the conversation of when our gremlins start to come up, whatever those happen to be, around I'm not successful enough, or I've tried that before, or I can't pass the $1 million mark, or I can't do fill in the blank, and then because it's for us to bring those conversations also into this prosperity partnership feedback, because how much of the sting just got let go as a result of you just saying it and then hearing some feedback about it?
Well, he called me the second, I think the third, you called back, and he goes, oh guys, I've been so busy, I've been so caught up, and then I said, okay, great, because I don't want to feel like, it's almost like dating. I don't feel like I'm chasing you down.
Right.
And then when he said he called me, he told me that he was been busy. I said, okay, cool, okay.
And so I think this is, once again, it's really good for all of us to get insight as to how we behave and how we show up and how we believe something is being perceived.
Right.
Because most of what we believe is being perceived by other people is all up here. And it's so great to begin to see how that is not the truth of who we are. And if we're always showing up in service, thank you very much, Devin, for putting that as the idea. He put that as the idea for tonight when he came in, and he set the intention for it with me. He didn't even know he was doing that. And it's so funny that Meetup would say, you're promoting a service, and I'm promoting service, not a service. And the fact is that we are here to be of service to one another. And as you build that community together, then you get to have a different experience, and you get to let go of some of that conversation that's been going on. And I wanted to read this because I thought it was really interesting. I also bought the Bruce Lipton's, what is that? Spontaneous Evolution. So imagine this, that you're going along, operating like a well-oiled machine, and then one day your world begins to shudder and shake. Your whole system begins to fail, your cells begin to commit suicide, and there's a sense of darkness and impending doom. Does that sound like drowning? I don't know. From within this dying population, a new breed of cells begins to emerge, clustering in community. They devise a plan to create something entirely new from the wreckage. And out of the decay rises a great flying machine that enables the survivors to escape from the ashes and experience a whole new world. And the interesting thing is that both of those bodies share the very same DNA. So, is that a sci-fi movie that I'm explaining? Devin, you know what it is, don't you? Or you're laughing.
I'm amused. I love it.
Do you know what it is?
It's the cellular aspect of who we are.
Actually, it is the cellular aspect of what we are, and it's when we transform, we all do this exact same thing as what a caterpillar does turning into a butterfly. And so I want to thank Ryan, thank you. I was like, oh, I don't have your card. Ryan, Ryan came here Thursday night when my other meetup, which is a class, which we had postponed the class, and so we sat and we talked, and he happened to mention to me, even though I've heard this name before, Bruce Lipton, I was like, oh, I have to go check it out. And I was explaining to everybody that I read that book like I was eating voraciously. And the fact is that because your cells, and just because we talked about the brain last week and that myelin, and your cells also play a part in this, it's this idea of biology and quantum physics coming together that are going to create what it is that you want if you understand how it operates. So we didn't get an owner's manual when we were born. I wish we had, because I would like to have learned when I was in primary school how to make my life the way that I wanted it, instead of trying to figure this out by myself. And instead of when I ask for something, whatever that happens to be in my life, that I'm vibrating at a certain energy level, because we're all vibrating, and that's what's creating our experiences for us. And you can do all your energy on study, all your research on study. But what happens is the very first thing that happens when we ask for something different than what we have is that whatever is not a match for that energetically starts to show up, because that's what you were coming from in the first place. So whatever is in your way is what needs to be cleared or moved through in order to see what you see in this perspective of wholeness. Because you were already born whole. This is the thing that I always find fascinating, is that you were already brought into this world. And how many of you have kids? Babies, right? Adorable. When they were babies, right? Did you look at them and go, you're so bad and you must have sinned before you were born? No, right? And then we fill them up with all these beliefs and all of these ideas that they didn't ask for. They just came from wherever they came. And then we wonder why they behave in the way that they do. And guess what? You were that baby one time. So when you come from that place of knowing that there's just this programming that's going on in there, then you can begin to say, do I like that programming? And can I change that programming? And so talking about this from the perspective of picking up from last week where we were with the Dan Coyle's myelin idea. He says those three things. You have to have deep practice, you have to have ignition, and you have to have mastering coaching. So I want to talk about this idea of deep practice for 1 second. Because when he talks about practice, he's talking about what he calls deep practice. And that practice that you have when it's deep is different than if you just do it rote. Because we've all been told, how do you get to Carnegie Hall, right? Practice, practice, practice. And the idea here is that this deep practice comes from a place of this ignition that propels you into doing it. So if you are practicing the fact that I'm going to use the example of people that say they want money. So they want money. Okay, great. Now that's why it sells on infomercials that people want money, is because people equate money with what it is that they really want, right? People do not want gobs of money, right? There are very few people, I think I might know a couple of them, that would like to roll around in a bed of money, right? That might get them happy. The fact of the matter is that if you want money, you actually want something as a result of the money. So it's so important to get in touch with whatever this is that's driving you, so that you can be motivated by the emotions and the feelings that come from that. Because what he discovered was, in those hotbeds, these people are just the same that are being taught by one teacher. Let's say you've got a little kid that takes piano lessons. One child is going to excel and one child isn't, and it's not the piano teacher, right? What's the difference? The piano teacher's teaching the exact same way, giving the same practice. It comes from the energy that comes from the child. And what is that? What he discovered is that's the desire to do something. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how you can come to practice deeply this idea of wealth. Because wealth is just a conversation, as we did talk about last week, about well-being, about prosperity, and about happiness. So, how do you be happy? Well, you can practice being happy, but there are some specific techniques to doing it. The first thing that I want to do, though, is I want you to begin to think of, last week we talked about a conversation having around your beliefs, or the first thoughts that you had around how your parents might have perceived abundance or life in general. So using that as a jumping off point, knowing that because they gave you input, right? They gave you input. It doesn't mean that it's there forever if you choose it not to be, but right now it's hardwired. It's part of the subconscious programming that's going on. I want you to think of 5 positive affirmations about your life, about you personally, and particularly around money or prosperity or wealth, that are true about you or that you would like to be true about you. Okay, I just want you to come up with 5. And to give you an opportunity to cheat a little bit, I'm going to give you some examples. Or can you pass those back to me? Can you pass that back to me? So I want you to just begin to think about what you believe about yourself to be true about money in a positive way, or something that you would like to believe to be true. Just 5 things, and take like 2 minutes to write those out.
And the focus is money?
Money, wealth, prosperity, abundance. What I'm going to have you do is I want you to pick one of those that you would like to believe, and I want you to say, I want you to describe to the group, your group, if those things were true, what would be different about your life, number 1? And specifically, what behaviors would you do differently? This is really key to also identify how your life would be different. Like, I'd have a new car, I'd have this, or I'd have whatever it is. I'd have more friends, I'd be in better relationship with my parents, whatever it is. I want you then to identify for your group 3 specific behaviors that you would do differently in your life. So let's say, I'll just use an example. Let's say that if I was going to have a better relationship with my parents, then I would have more in-depth conversations with them, right? Does this make sense for you? If you wanted that red Ferrari, well, how would you act differently if you were driving a red Ferrari? If that was what your goal or aspiration was, what behavior would you do differently in your life? Would you walk taller? Would you be more egotistical? Would you be more confident? Just 1 specific or 3 specific behaviors for this belief. Now, those are just 2 examples. Whatever your example or whatever your belief is, or your desire for your belief, I want you to come up with, and you can talk it out with your group, because you might go, I'm stuck, I don't know. And then they can give you feedback, because this is what's so great about having community, is that we can't think sometimes out of our own box. So it's just a little nudging. Now, you don't take their suggestions as your own. They're just suggestions and they're just feedback. So this is an opportunity for you to come up with 3 behaviors that you would do differently than you do today, based on some belief that you would like to have out of the 5 things that you wrote down. Questions? Okay, you can get in your groups, and I'll give you about 7 minutes. So that's about 2 minutes each.